Well, thank you very much, Christopher. What a lovely way of saying hello to everybody. First of all, thanks so much for coming. I know it's very hard. It's the third day, and you're here, and for good reason, because Dima has a lot to say, and she's even recording this right now, so I have to be very, very pleasant now. She has quite a busy life. You know, she spent time, of course, in Doha, well, then in Hong Kong, Caracas, Dubai, Damascus, Geneva, and Bern. From Bern to Bonn. I love that. And then when we talked about this session before, we had some struggle to figure out which language shall we take. She speaks 7 languages, and all of them brilliantly. Her German is so impeccable that we decided to go with English. So you have to live with my non-native tongue here. Sorry about that. She's listed among the most influential Arabs on social media. And, which is really, really nice, she's the most connected woman. I didn't even know that title existed. On Twitter, 320,000 followers try to beat her. You know, she has a lot to say. She has a great energy. And we'll see that in a second, because now it's your time to be energetic to get up there, before she gives a short presentation. 2 questions to kick us all off and get us all in the right mode and mood. Question number 1, and there is no maybe, okay? It's a yes or no. Do you believe that technology is an obstacle, or is technology rather a chance? Meaning, is technology bad because it has all these bad algorithms and all these things, or is it really good because it helps us achieve things that could otherwise not be achieved? So, there is no in between. Just raise your hand. Technology is an obstacle. No one. 1. Okay. That was a clear maybe. Okay, so. You raised your hand. Oh yeah, I was basically doing this. It was a maybe hand. So all of you are saying, is that both? There is no both. Well, fine, we get to that. But anyways, you wanted to convince everybody that technology is a chance. Already everybody is convinced. Second and last question before we start. Who of you is curious? Hands up, please. Oh, Nasser, not curious? Al-Bashir? No. Okay, so you'll be curious to find out the secrets of AJ+, which she's now sharing. So please, give her a big hand, Dima Khatib. Sometimes comes very handy.
You can't hear me without the microphone?
They can't record you without a microphone.
They can't record me without the microphone. Oh, God. Okay. Well, here again. I'm very happy to be here. And I want to start immediately with my first video.
Tu aimes le chocolat, cochonne? Elle grossit de plus en plus à vue d'œil. Elle devrait arrêter de s'empiffrer de kebab, McDo, couscous et macroute. Bleu, grosse et carré. C'est pas une présentatrice, c'est un loukoum tutti frutti. La grosse arabe qui vient expliquer aux Français ce qu'est un détraqué sexuel. La recette du pudding pour la grosse dame qui se dit journaliste. De plus en plus grassouillette. Il va falloir nous pondre une vidéo sur la grossophobie. Eh bien oui, suite à ces commentaires sympathiques sur mon poids, j'ai décidé de vous parler de la grossophobie. Mais qu'est-ce que la grossophobie?
So actually, I was invited here to talk about how to transfer information in a digital age, but I showed you this video to tell you that we do not transfer information. We actually exchange information. This was Yasmina. Yasmina is part of the AG+ Français team. I'm wearing there because this is the last one in our family, AG+ Français. And Yasmina did a video about LGBT. And people, all they had to say was about her looking fat in the video. So she decided to do a video about people who are afraid of fat people. And that's how this video was made. In AJ+, we do not pretend that we know what the story should be. The story is a work in progress all the time in a continuous conversation with ourselves amongst ourselves and with our audience. So we build the stories that we tell every day. And we always tell stories because in this digital era, it's actually the stories that matter to the people. It's not the small pieces of information that they may get very easily. That's what actually gets people to engage. One of the secrets of AJ+, and I think one of the secrets of all people who succeed online, is that they are their audience. So if you look at the audience that you want to target young people between 18 and 24, like us in AJ+, then that's the kind of people that you will get working for you, because that's how you will know what your audience is. Now in AJ+, I'm giving you an example. This is the ratio of female versus male in terms of the employees. And this is the engagement in terms of our audience on Facebook. It is automatic that if you have that kind of gender diversity in your team, then you will have that kind of gender diversity in your audience. And that actually is higher than the average competitors' engagement ratio on Facebook, because most of our competitors, you will find that they have more male and less female, and by far, sometimes with one of our closest competitors, you'll find sometimes they have 70% male engagement and 30% female engagement. And I think the secret is exactly that you have, if you want to achieve that, then you have to be that. One more thing we do is we want to reach out to all of those countries with their stories, then we have to be those stories. Then we have to have people from those stories working for us. And from each of those countries, if you look, some of the Arab countries, for example, from Algeria, we have people who are Arab and people who are Amazigh on our team. From Iraq, we have people who are Arab and people who are Kurds. From other countries, you'll find we have Christians, Sunni, Shia, Muslims, all kinds. The diversity of our team is actually reflected in the diversity of our audience and vice versa. So these are the countries that our teams come from all over the world in the 4 languages that we have. And then one thing I want to tell you is adaptability is a very important key to your success online. You cannot copy-paste Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Snapchat, and YouTube and pretend that you're going to be successful. You have to understand the philosophy and the mentality of each one of those platforms. The same person that follows the same story on Facebook will have a different behavior on Twitter, a different behavior on YouTube, because of the kind of behavioral patterns that these platforms have created in us. When you open Twitter, you're usually going through something quick. When you open YouTube, you're at home. You actually choose what you want to watch. You don't wait for something to show up on your feed. You've actually made a conscious decision of where to go, and you have time. So I'll cover the story in a much longer format for you than I would on Twitter, for example. This is an example of something we did in Ajota Plus Español in Mexico. And this is actually WhatsApp.
Nosotras las tías estamos hartas de que se nos encasillen.
Que nos estereotipen.
Siempre dicen que somos las que mandamos las cadenas falsas en WhatsApp.
Dicen que es típico de nosotras llenar los chats familiares de alertas inventadas.
Teorías de la conspiración.
So this is an initiative we made to verify the information that people exchanged during the Mexican elections on WhatsApp. Actually, the audience sends us the pictures or the videos or the information, and we verify it. And we show them how we verified, and we answer them back on WhatsApp. And then we publish it on Verificado 2018, which is our initiative with other media organizations. So you using WhatsApp for that is actually what I talked about earlier, adaptability. Use the best platform for the best target that you want to achieve. And never stop inventing and creating new ways of delivering your message.
خد عندك اوصف قهوة في الشارع. كل اللي قاعد فيها حاطط رجل فوق التانية والرجل.
Now you'd think Al Jazeera is supposed to just give information and news, but this was actually poetry. We thought it would be good to help people appreciate that it's not just the information they get every day that matters. It's also how it's represented in arts, in the different arts. So we draw poetry for them because we know it's difficult for people to appreciate poetry when you are at war, when you have a lot of issues to deal with, and because people don't appreciate poetry as much as I think they should. So we made this show that changed the way. We didn't think it was going to be that successful, but it actually shows you there is appetite. And finally, remember that you're erasing borders. AJ Plus is from a country in the south. We influence electors, people who vote in a country like the US in the north, as much as we influence people in Mexico in the south. We don't go through the intermediaries like we used to do in traditional media. We don't go through the news agencies that decide the agenda for us or that have a certain view on us or on the other. We try to reach out directly from within, and that is what technology allows us to do. I want you to watch this video when you go back to your phones after we are done, Eating Like a Refugee, because I want you to know that storytelling has 1,000,001 ways.
This is me almost getting hit in the face with a noodle.
Oh my God.
It's just one of the many lovely encounters I've had with food.
Holy God. Yara, what are you eating?
But for 1 week, I tried eating like a refugee.
So to understand what it feels like to live like a refugee and tell the story of a refugee, our reporter actually lived like a refugee, eating their food for 1 week. And I'd love you to see this piece. This piece is very long, but it broke the record even on Twitter, although it's long, because it's a compelling way of telling the story. Thank you very much.
We first get some water to you, and then...
Ohne Kohlensäure.
This is naturel. And see, it says...
Right. Thank you. Danke.
I'm glad I survived that one. Now let me... You want to go and stand in front of that table? So, yeah, we do the bar type. Hold it. Okay. Now, cool. Tell me, you're based in Doha, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that, we all know, is quite a political place, which has a lot of issues. The 6 neighboring countries have decided to cut ties with the Qatari government.
You didn't agree we were going to talk about this.
Oh, show it.
Guido, I had lunch with you.
Yeah, freedom of speech. And no, the only question I'm having is, what is it like to work for a government which gives you the money? We don't have a sheikh in Germany, but he obviously gives you money. And what is it like to work together in a moment like this when the whole country seems to be under pressure? And obviously AJ Plus plays such an important role to reach out to people.
Right. I think the challenge for us at that moment when 1 year ago Qatar was subjected to the blockade by the neighboring countries was that Al Jazeera itself became the target. So we became the story and we're covering the story. How can you maintain your balance and your rationale as a journalist when you are targeted as a journalist, when you don't know if they're going to shut down your workplace, if you're going to lose your job, and you don't understand what you have done wrong. So you come to work, you're charged with, and how do you keep covering your own story by remaining a journalist? I think that was the toughest challenge for me every day with the team, who were all wondering in anxiety what was going to happen to Al Jazeera, because it was the #1 demand by the blockading countries that Al Jazeera be completely shut down, including AJ Plus.
And what is the everyday feel of this for you?
For me? Mm-hmm. Gosh, Guido. It was tough. I admit, for me, it was tough coming to work every day. Nobody knew what was going to happen. We heard that maybe they're going to topple the government that is giving us the funding to keep Al Jazeera going and AJ Plus, that they're going to bomb Al Jazeera, that God knows what, that there's a new emir out of an exile. And you hear stuff every night between midnight and 5. What it was for me is very sleepless nights where I'm trying to keep the journalists motivated and feeling secure, bringing security from within, not from without, because we had no idea what was really going to happen. So they were tough days, but I think the team grew so well. They matured after this experience.
And what is it like now? So now the sheikh would just give you a call and say, here's some money, do something good?
No, that's not how it works.
No.
No, I mean, Al Jazeera does get funding from the government of Qatar, but it just gets it once a year, and we just take that money and use it the way we want. So we get allocated a number of riyals or dollars, whatever, and we just use it. And we don't, it's not that I'm in touch with any Qatari official as such or government. That's not how it works. I run my own AJ Plus team the way I see best, according to the Al Jazeera general editorial line. But it's a different editorial line to Al Jazeera Channel or Al Jazeera English. And even within the AJ Plus 4 languages, I have different editorial lines.
Yeah, which gets us to the point that I wanted to get to anyways. Because obviously, you said yesterday that there were different missions to fulfill in a way, or different editorial guidelines that you are following.
Well, you can't achieve the same thing with an Arabic-speaking audience that you can achieve in a country like the US or Mexico or France. These are mature democracies where media can play a very constructive role. In the Arab world, you incite people to go on a demo, they may never go back home. So that's not the idea. So I thought for AJ Plus Arabic, why don't I work on opening people's minds and making them think, and rather look at the options they have. And one main thing we do in AJ Plus Arabic is trying to help people acknowledge there is an other, accept the difference between one and the other, and live with that difference, and not kill that difference.
There has been a lot of talk about, let's say, the US elections, when people said there were voices from the outside trying to influence these elections, these kind of things. Would you go that far and say, well, if we believe it's the right cause, maybe it would be a good point to try and influence some things for people to change their minds?
We're not there to influence people as in to make them do something in specific. We're there to inform them very consciously about the real options they have. And of course, we have an editorial line. For example, on things like Palestine, it's not negotiable. It's not changeable. It's not variable. But in elections, we try to play it very professional. But yes, I mean, most of my journalists were very emotionally involved because they are our audience in the end. And I believe journalists are emotionally involved most of the time, except they hide it because they have to. But in AJ Plus, we have opinion pieces where the journalist actually shows their opinion. And it's fine because our audience knows that we are opinionated. We're not saying we're not. Mm-hmm. And I think that's the key thing. I thought you were going to give the audience a chance to ask questions.
That's what's happening now, because I was just about to say, there are a lot of journalists. I'm sure there will be hands flying up. And is that a hand, Leah? Yes. Okay, so the microphone is coming your way.
Hi, Dima. Thank you. Leah Winnett from Deutsche Welle.
Hi.
So you guys were launched as a social media subsidiary of Al Jazeera, initially on the traditional platforms, of course, aimed at the young people. And my question is, you know, we looked at WhatsApp in the video before, and I've also read recently that you're cooperating with Euronews. So my question is, to what extent is your distribution strategy changing, especially given the changes, the many changes with the traditional social media platforms these days?
What do you mean by traditional social media platforms and non-traditional? Sorry, I didn't.
So probably the traditional ones, I mean Twitter, Facebook, yeah, and to what extent are you moving on to chat applications and other distribution ways like
well, we're always exploring. There is nothing I can tell you in specific. The WhatsApp idea, for example, it's the team that came up with it, and we just went along with it, and it worked. But I can't say that we are changing. We are still on Facebook. We are more so on YouTube now than we were 2 years ago, and that's what you're calling traditional social media, because I think YouTube has very solid ground in terms of the changes in algorithms of Facebook that go up and down all the time. And it actually builds loyalty, which is what Facebook is trying to do by doing the same thing, by YouTubeizing itself. It's a work in progress all the time. As for Euronews, nothing that I can say is changing at the moment. I know about the deal, obviously, but there's nothing I can comment.
Let me just quickly follow up on this. As far as these platforms are concerned, there's been a huge talk that Google doesn't want to consider itself a platform. They say we're a search engine. Facebook and Google are playing with their algorithms, however. And there's a lot of complaint, with due reason, that people say, well, it's not transparent. I don't know what kind of information I'm getting. I don't know why I'm getting this kind of information. I'd like this to be more open. Otherwise, they'll be the ones to decide what works and what doesn't. So I have not heard you complain, which is great. So you're basically saying, well, you just have to play by their rules and try to understand them. So what is the secret here? How does it work?
I think as long as I'm achieving my goals and I keep doing the content I want and reaching the audience that I want to reach, then I see that we are using Facebook and Google rather than them using us. They may be using us, but I feel that I'm achieving much more than they are in terms of what we are achieving with our audience. It's fantastic to reach out to all of these audiences around the world without having to go through 300,000 satellites and cable companies or printed paper. It's an amazing thing that within seconds you post the video and you have all these people commenting from all over the world. So I think the important thing is that you keep marching and you keep following the pace of change, because this is a non-stop constant change that's happening. You have to be up to that speed. You have to be very dynamic. And adaptability is what I said earlier.
Being dynamic is not your problem, is it?
I hope so.
Okay, anybody who wants to comment on this point, because especially with regards to search engines and the social media platforms that we already call traditional, believe it or not, who were not out there a couple of years ago when we started the Global Media Forum for the first time. They did not play that role. Is it not related to it? Yep. So can we? Yes. Thanks. And maybe you could give a hand to all these super fast microphone runners that we have here. That is great. Yes. Thank you so much. 3 sportive days.
So there's a lot of discussion about who's in control, these kind of the ones behind the social media platforms or the journalists. So we've heard about a lot of the changes that happened with Facebook and the length of the videos and the ratings and views and the shares. So who do you think is really in control? The journalists who are making the stories, or the social media platforms that are telling us constantly how to present the stories to the people in order to make kind of a bigger impact?
Look, I can tell the story in 30 seconds, in 2 minutes, in 13 minutes. The important thing is that my message gets through where I want it. I don't mind if I have to do the story in a few seconds or a few minutes. If that's what it's going to take for me to reach an audience, and that doesn't mean they're controlling my story or my content. That's just the way it used to be with television when you had to subscribe to a satellite or to a cable company. You could not decide how many homes they would make you reach. You could not decide anything. They decided for you as a content provider, and they decided for the audience which channels they're going to put on. I don't see it any different. I see that when I do a story about a refugee, one of the most successful stories we did at Angel Plus Arabi, a refugee kid in Turkey who had a disease, had no documents. We did the story, it went viral. There was a committee online for funding his move from Turkey to another European country. He's now in Austria getting treatment, going to school, having a life. That's the real impact we have, and that's what matters to me. Now, I did the story in 2 minutes on YouTube or 13 minutes on Twitter. Tomorrow I may do it differently, or in a small tweet or a snap or Insta story. That doesn't matter to me. I will not waste my energy thinking if they're losing or they're winning. Yeah. I'm winning in the end if I'm telling the story.
Let me just be specific. So Facebook right now prioritizes live. So
no, it doesn't anymore. That's but that's old. That's very old news. It doesn't prioritize live for us publishers. It prioritizes live for people. For us, live is now, live was like 2 years ago that Facebook Live was being prioritized for publishers. It's now for the people to use. So,
but Dima, isn't that the issue that we don't really know what is prioritized and what isn't, and that it is an ever-changing game? And you're right in saying we need to be ahead of that game, otherwise we can't play it. But it's very hard to stay ahead for many because they are not too transparent about telling us what they do.
They don't, but in the end, they don't come and tell you we're going to do this, but you can see it. You just have to be very agile, like a tiger.
Speaking of agile and tiger, you see what we're doing here, right? This is our cage, and we're moving around. We left the bar already because the water is almost empty. I was just being told, I did miss a hand here in my back. Is there still a hand?
And there's my friend there from Palestine who wants to ask a question.
Really, really? Anybody? So him first, then you? Okay, please.
Sure.
Okay, Dima, one direct question. What you have done through the past 2 years, I can't say anything but constructive, informative, educational, very good videos. I love myself, and I told you in person that one program you have made me a big fan of AG+, الدحيح. How much information, science, you're getting to our Arabic community. The question is like this. You put a lot of money in AG+. You put a lot of money in education people. You put a lot of money in sponsoring this. You put a lot of money that many people see this. But what do you get back out of it? This is a question, it's a legal question. Anyone has to ask, what do AG+ get back out of it? Because you put a lot of money. Do you get it back, or do you get something else?
What do you think we get back, my friend?
I'm here to ask questions.
No, I'm sure you have something in mind that you think we get back.
The influence, okay, I agree. I just got this help from Khalid. Influence is definitely something you get, but
well,
are you after something else?
I think influence is definitely what we get and what we want to get. I get to be here talking to all of you from around the world about an experience we did in an Arab country where we have beaten even the biggest US media in their own market with their own audiences. Now, I, as an Arab journalist, can actually have an impact on how they see our story on Palestine, our story on Syria. I can change the narratives in the US audience amongst millions. There are 14 million new voters in Mexico that will cast a vote for the first time in their life on 1st of July. They are following us to get verified information about the candidates they will choose from. What more would a journalist want, my dear?
Yeah, but that's when you're saying, I mean, this is your definition of influencing,
yes.
Right? Which is pretty close to...
Impact. You have a message and you get impact. You get to change lives of people, and you can see that visibly online, because online is fantastic. You can trace how your story is leading to another story. That's so empowering. You're empowering people with information.
Who tells you you have the right to do that, to influence people in a way to even manipulate them, maybe?
No, we're not manipulating people. We're helping people make up their minds and understand better the world that's around them. I'm not saying I want people to do this or do that. Mm-hmm. I'm helping them get clear information in a world of a lot of misguided information that's spreading around. That's what we're doing with Verificado in Mexico. Mm-hmm. We're the only media in Mexico at the moment who is not economically or commercially or politically linked to any agenda. So we have nothing, actually, to achieve except journalism.
Okay, so you're saying the agenda you have is definitely not linked to the agendas of the others.
No, the agenda I have is no agenda except bringing journalism back to verifying information before anything else.
Oh, that's great. That's why we're here in that cage. But Jafar, you grabbed the mic, so...
Yes, I would like to ask something, Dima. We've been talking a lot yesterday and today.
On Facebook Live, I suppose.
Yeah, also.
Yes. Yeah.
And you've been mentioning more than once journalism. What's the core idea of your understanding for journalism?
We talked about this yesterday. You want me
I know,
to
but
say it again?
I listened now to different things you said now, and I asked, but I still, you didn't answer yet. That's why I'm going to ask again and again and again. What's the core understanding of journalism that you have? What's about the code of ethics, objectivity, both opinions, you know?
It's all of those things, but obviously, as I said to you yesterday, I don't believe in impartial journalism. That's not possible. I do not believe you can tell a story impartially. The way you tell the story with your tone of voice, the kind of picture you start with, the kind of interviews you choose, the sound bites, the music, the colors, the effects, everything that you use is partial, is a choice that you make, and it impacts people's perception of your story. You cannot pretend to be impartial. What you can pretend to be is professional. Do not lie, do not fabricate, do not change facts. You can be opinionated as long as they know, your audience knows that this is an opinion piece, that you are opinionated. And in my case, I always see journalism as a mission, so we should always be with the underprivileged. No matter how many layers of underprivilege, we should also always go to the most underprivileged because they don't have space. People with power have space and have voice. If we keep giving the people in power the same space as everybody else, they'll keep gaining more space. And that's not the idea. Because as a journalist, I think we have a mission. It's not a job you get money for and then you just say what you're supposed to say. That's what journalism is about for me.
So, but you just claimed people know you are opinionated, so it's fine to have an opinion and show that.
If you say
how do people understand? How do people, if they search, and you know the way how people can access it? They come to your website, they see the AJ Plus logo, they might even see a claim and say, okay, now I know where it's coming from. The moment that video is circulated and reaches them through different other channels, they might not be aware who that source is and might be mistaken or misled because some information might be missing. You're saying that's fine because we're opinionated?
No, our presenter would go and say, I'm Dina Takruri, I'm standing here, and I feel really upset about this. She says that, and it's fine. She's a journalist, she's a human being, and we connect with our audience like that. And I think AJ Plus is the fruit of citizen journalism that erupted during the Arab revolutions and became so powerful. We use the tools of citizen journalism to make journalism with the same tools. But we will not shy away from our stance, again, for example, on Palestine. We will not be pretending that we're covering it by giving two sides the same space or by acknowledging that they are equal sides. They're not equal to us, so we will not give them the same space. And again, there is power, there is an underprivileged, and there is people with power. So whenever there's people with power, we will go with the underprivileged. That's AJ Plus. It's about the people. It's not about the presidential communique or a press conference between some guys who think they are the most important people to be heard in the world. It's about the people and their stories.
Which is why we're giving you exactly that platform to clarify what you stand for. Because
yes.
At Deutsche Welle, we, as you know and have heard, we have a different understanding when it comes to impartiality and trying to give balanced views. I guess we all agree that as subjects, it is very hard to give objective opinions, of course. But to strive all the time to try to portray the different views and not by judging you don't deserve that space, that is a different... But
if I am in Tahrir Square, I'm not going to tell the people that are being shot at, hey, sorry, I have to go now. Just give me 2 minutes. I'm getting a soundbite with the guy who's shooting you because I want to give their point of view as well. I'm not going to do that. That's not going to happen.
Different example, yeah. There's a hand up. And there as well, yeah.
I would like to thank you.
Who are you? Hi.
I am Nivin Melik, a human rights activist, Egyptian human rights activist, and currently I'm working with the Doha Center for Media Freedom, based in Qatar. You are doing a fantastic job with your team, I know.
Thank you.
You are struggling there, the battle there, online. I'm from the Middle East, the Arab world, I know everything. We have a lot of challenge there. And when you see the traditional network or the media, they're mostly controlled with the government. We have no space, just this space, online space. So you are doing great for changing mind. You are doing well. Struggle for your battle there. And please combat hate speech and try to be not partly or sectarian with any ideological, keep your great job independently, try to be more stronger because of the battle there. Thank you.
Thank you, Nivin. Thank you.
Okay, so we do it the easy way. There's someone here, and then I've seen, yeah, you gave me the look that I must have ignored you before, so I really apologize. So he'll be next. And then we just, oh yeah, and you as well. Okay, we will extend our session a little bit. Right? Okay, so we can do that. We ignore timing. This is the new Germany, ladies and gentlemen. Forget all about punctuality, right? Try to catch a plane. It's not going anyways. Please.
Hi, Dima. This is Sanuta from India. I run a video team, back in my country, and one of my biggest challenges is, to sustain social-first videos from a business point of view, right? So I'm just wondering for a state-funded organization like yours, that may not be your top challenge, right? But what is your top challenge?
Actually, obviously, we would love to make money, except that it's not that easy. And I admit that people who have to depend on financing themselves through social first, they're going to go through a lot of trouble following up. You know, the way I explained, you have to be agile with the content, you have to be agile with that as well. So Facebook is monetizing really high on something today, if you do lives, and tomorrow it's zero. After tomorrow it's something else. So it's tough, obviously. What is the challenge for us, AJ+? To me, the challenge is more internal than external. Because we are in a very big institution, so coming up with a new concept is one thing, preserving it is another thing. So that's actually quite a challenge, especially that you're perceived as something and you have to continue staying there where you're perceived, while actually society or the community is not as easy to keep together like that. So the challenge is internal. The challenge is with my team, keeping the team diversified, accepting each other, doing everything that actually AJ+ stands for. And all the bureaucratic challenges that you may face in a region like the Arab world, where getting a visa for a journalist is almost impossible. Getting a permit to shoot on a street can be a huge deal. All of that is actually what my daily challenge is. Thank you. And we're looking actually at doing something in India very soon.
Fantastic. I'll hook up with you outside.
Yes, sure.
May I kindly ask the tiger to move a little bit into that direction, because the gentleman over here.
Hello. Well, let me just fine. Let me just commend you for nice work you've been doing.
Thank you.
I'm a professor from University of Lagos, Nigeria. My name is Suraj, University of Adekunle. Now, I'll ask you a question, and I'll critique what you have said for the second question. The first question is this: as a social media influencer, to what extent have you been a victim of self-censorship as well? Now, secondly, I don't agree that you don't have agenda, because in military circles, inform and influence, in social media influencer, impact and influence. There's no way you are going to have impact without having an influence. And completely, I don't agree with objectivity in journalism. There's nothing called objectivity as far as I'm concerned. I believe in fairness. Now, if you are going to influence, you must have an agenda. You must have a kind of perception you are coming from. And that dictates how your audience follow you, because you are informed them to influence them. I don't know.
Are you teaching your students all of that?
No, I used to.
Is this your professor,
very realistic,
right? That would be fantastic.
Because,
really.
Look, I know that when it comes to journalism, the issue of economics, ownership, all these have a role to play. And individually, we have a perception on any issue. As a journalist, you are not free from your personality. You have what you had in mind. But what I tell my students is this: in doing that, be fair, have alternative narratives, have what other people are saying, and let people tell the story, tell the news, don't tell the story about the news. I think that's where my objective is coming from. And it's about media literacy, which I also teach.
Thank you for your critique and your question. I will start with the end. I agree with you that objectivity is something we can try and be, but I think we cannot achieve in many cases, because my background, your background are different. So if we go to cover the same exact speech by a president, we will come up with two completely different stories. We are both being professional and honest. We are both being ethical. We just have two completely different ways of seeing the story that's in front of us. And that's because your background is different to my background, from different cultures. And even in the same culture, you will have two journalists telling the story completely differently. So I agree with you about objectivity. When I said we had no agenda, I meant specifically in verifying the information in Mexico, because we are not linked to any company or political or any conflict whatsoever, as opposed to the media scene in Mexico, which is all involved in corruption, politics, commercial ties, all kinds of very complicated relations that make the media lose credibility in front of their audience. So in Mexico, we are free from all of those things because we come from far away. We have no local things to tie us to anything. But in the Middle East, there is no way that you cannot be party, especially that when you're targeted like Al Jazeera is. You have a stance, and obviously you are not Naised, we're not impartial, and we have an editorial line, and it's very clear. We're not ashamed of our editorial line.
Okay. Thanks, Dima. I guess that point was very clear. The thing is, we have one final question, and there is one woman with a microphone in her hand, and she's desperately tried before. So please, short question, short answer.
Okay, I'll try to be as quick as possible.
Sorry?
Oh, self-censorship. Well, I think all journalists may have some self-censorship. I try to stop that as much as I can through my experience with journalism. I know the times that I have done that to myself. So I try to be different now and try and face the issues rather than let self-censorship take over. But yes, sometimes it may happen, especially when it comes to social issues for the Arabic audience. Yes, sometimes self-censorship does play a role within the journalist himself or herself.
Thanks, Dima.
Okay, so I'll try to be as short as possible. I'm Elena Boroda from Germany. And I have two very short questions. So the first one is, actually, you do use gender-neutral language, for example, in French. And yes, like the dots. Do. And how would the impact of that be? Do you already see an impact of that? And do you think that's kind of a first step? And the second question is...
that was the first question?
That was the first question. But
nice definition, really waiting for the second five questions.
You spoke a lot about inequalities and kind of, being with the person who is the most unequally, unequal in a society and underprivileged in a society. Why then are you not present in the Russian Federation?
Okay, we have not thought of AG plus Russian yet, but you never know if that may take place or not in the future. That's why we are not there. And the first question on the gender issue, I think the fact that people discuss it with us online is already, for me, achieving the goal of it, is opening the conversation on that kind of initiative, writing, inclusive writing in French. And I was thinking of coming up with something like that in Arabic, where I would put anta and anti, like fatha and dhamma, under the same, and try and test that with the Arabic audience. I don't know if they will shoot me or like it or whatever, but I was thinking we should come up with something like that as well.
And what was the spectrum of the reactions that you had?
No, in Francais, it's very positive because people talk about it. Some of them criticize us, and some of them like it. But the discussion itself is what matters. It's a conversation. I don't want them to become like us. That's not the idea. I don't want everybody to write like that. I want them to know that they have that option and that they can continue writing whatever they want, but that this can exist as well.
Dima Khatib, thanks for your opinions and for your openness.
Thank you.
And what we have all learned is next time, bring a sweatshirt with a print on your back so you can always do that, right? No one can move as elegantly. Thank you so much. Thanks to you.
Thank you.